And the white oak leaves are rustling round the courtyard. Tell the cook to leave the kitchen window down. Just don't lock it from inside. I might still need a place to hide when I turn to face the horses and the hounds.
It was like 7 years since your previous record, so I'm curious as to what kind of prompted you to come up with this one.
Well, my tour draw fell off a couple of years ago, and when that happens, it's time to make a record.
I see.
It used to be that we toured to promote record sales. Now we put out records to promote tour dates, because
right.
People will write about us, and
yeah.
We'll get in the paper, and somebody knows we're coming to town. Maybe they'll buy a ticket.
Right.
It's like that.
Yeah. Did you have something to write about, though? Was that a problem?
Well, no, that's not a problem. I have a scrap pile that I work from that I built up over the course of decades, and it used to be on boxes full of notepads. Now it's all on a notes app, various writing programs. So I just kind of scroll through it, and when it's time to make a record, then I try to finish a bunch of songs.
Right.
I don't. There's usually one or two will get written from scratch.
Right.
For the record, but mostly it's a matter of finishing stuff I've been putting off for years.
Right. And did you notice any kind of theme that ran through the songs that you wanted to put on this record?
Well, it turns out a lot of them are about being old.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
But I didn't set out to do that. I mean, I never set out to have a theme per record. I record what songs happen to get finished in time to make the record.
Right.
And in this case, when we tracked in June of 2019, Ross Hogarth was producing, and he called me up and said, "James, you kind of been messing around with this for a while. Why don't I'm going to go ahead and book time at Groove Masters in Santa Monica, and you're going to finish the songs."
Right.
I said, okay. Yeah. So that's what we did.
Yeah, I mean, one of the songs that I've got a note here, "If It Don't Bleed," definitely seems autobiographical and about aging and all that. Was that one of the earlier ones?
Save your prayers for yourself. Raise my glass to your health. I don't mind if you don't look like me. I can share my bread and wine. I come from another time, and it don't matter all that much if it don't bleed. If it don't bleed.
Oh, that was a late one. That one I actually did write from scratch for the record. Mostly at the wheel of a rental van on one of the last tours that we did before we tracked. I would turn the verses over in my head as I drove along. Then when I got to the hotel after check-in, we usually had about an hour between then and going to load in.
Right.
So I'd go in there and open up the computer and write those verses down before I forgot them. And
Gotcha.
Come back and work on them later.
Yeah. So you recorded in L.A. Was it in Jackson Brown's studio? Was it?
Yeah, Groove Masters in Santa Monica. Yeah.
So what kind of place is that? What did it feel like for you?
It's a very well laid out room. One of the few rooms I've been in where you can look, you can see both the band and the engineer.
Okay.
Because the vocal booth is just off the side of the console, and then you can look to your left and see the producer and engineer. You can look to your right and see the band. And usually a vocal booth is stuck way off across the band room, so you're way over here, kind of waving from Mars, as it were.
It's another version of isolation.
Yeah, well, it's well done. No, Jackson knew the deal. He laid that place out, and also it's an excellent drum room, and it really gets a good drum sound.
Right. So what kind of folks did you have playing with you on the record?
Well, I had my road drummer, Darren Hess, and then I had David Grissom did nearly all the guitars on it. And
he's been a busy guy. I've run into his work quite a bit these days.
Well, he's amazing. And I worked with him 30 years ago. He and Ross both were on the first two records I did with John Mellencamp.
Right.
Late 80s. And then later on when I started producing, I'd bring Grissom in for overdubs. 'Cause I always tracked as a trio. Just me and bass and drums, and we'd keep whichever take had the most life in it, and then we'd start building on it. And I often brought David in, because even if I didn't need a solo, if I just needed some background color, He does that great shimmery tremolo bar thing that I don't know how to do, so it adds a lot.
Very good. And so you mentioned Ross, that you guys go way back. So how do you work together? What kind of roles do you take on when you're working with him?
Well, I've worked with him in various capacities. When I first met him, he was John Mellencamp's engineer.
Right.
So he was just engineering. Now he did actually his work on those first two records did cross over into production. I think he has co-production credit on at least one of them, because he has ideas that work. And well, then I hired him to mix the first record that I produced. I got to a point a while back, before We Can't Make It Here, my career kind of was slowing down pretty bad, and my booking agent was pulling teeth to get me gigs.
Right.
And I started producing my own stuff because nobody else really wanted to. I think Lloyd Maines probably would have done it, but he was busy with the Dixie Chicks
right.
at the time, and so I had to figure out how to produce my own records. And there was a little ADAT studio on 6th Street, or just off of 6th Street in Austin, and they had a Neve board, but they didn't have a tape machine, and it was right as Pro Tools was coming in, but they didn't have that yet.
Yeah.
So he had 3 ADAT machines and a Rupert Neve modified Neve, because Rupert lived in Wimberley, Texas, and so you can't throw a rock around here without hitting a Neve board that he actually worked on and improved. But it was called Flashpoint Studios, and the guy, Flash, had that Neve, and it was a good sounding room. So, and it was cheap because it was ADAT, which was the cheapest format at that time. It was basically recording on striped VHS tapes. And so and we'd come in off the road when we were all greased up from the road, and even if I didn't have lyrics, we'd go in there and record stuff.
Right.
Just to figure out how to do it. I still have a refrigerator full of that ADAT. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I can't even find an ADAT machine anymore.
I'm curious, how much does the technology and the formats and all that, which change constantly, as an artist, as a songwriter, and as a person who makes records, how much does that have an effect on what we hear and what you do?
Oh, it has a great effect. But with that thing, I took all that ADAT out to L.A. and had Ross mix it. And what he did was bounce it to Pro Tools. Loaded, what songs we were using. He just loaded them all on a Pro Tools rig. But tape was still popular in those days, so he mixed it to 1-inch analog.
Right.
Which the mastering engineers really dug back then. Especially 1-inch was kind of rare because it gets bigger low end. So he pretty well saved that record, because some of the performances I recorded were really good, especially Grissom's. But but I wasn't a producer yet. I didn't know how to focus a performance.
Right.
Just kind of let the player go and then try to salvage what I could. And Ross can salvage pretty much anything. I mean, he can grab a guitar part and move it over and connect it to this other thing and build a solo out of it if he wants to. So he saved that record, and so I thought, he was getting into production at the time. And since then, he did Keb Mo. He got a Grammy for Keb Mo, did a bunch of people. So I thought, why not?
Why not?
I got to the point where I did 3 or 4 records on my own. And the last one, Just Us Kids, is a pretty good record. But by that point, I was already starting to reuse the tricks that I'd learned from producers that I worked with in the past. And I needed to go back to producer school, I thought. I don't know for a fact I'm ever going to do it again, but in case I do, I need to learn some new tricks. So I had C.C. Adcock produce the last record, and then I thought, well, why not have Ross do one? Because it kind of start over through the process. Right. I would like to revisit Mr. Dixon's homeroom. I hope I get to do that if things lighten up. But anyway, what Ross is, he's really persnickety, and he gets the best sound on everything.
Well, it sounds great. It's a great sounding record, that's for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because you record it in Jackson Brown's studio, but the feeling and the vibe reminds me more of Warren Zevon on this record. Just the attitude of the way you're writing your songs. Is that a fair statement?
I don't know. I heard it in the tracks, and that's what the guitar tracks reminded me. It seems like there's a Werewolf of London in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Lawyers, guns, and money. I don't know. It's in there. I didn't mean to write that way.
Right. Definitely the Lawyers, Guns, and Money
it.
is the one that was kind of bombing around in my head while I was listening to it, especially on Vaquero with the accordion. And it's like,
Mira vaquero, set on this solo. Buen caballero, viajando con Dios.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that song. That was another one I wrote late. That was when Bill Whitliff died, and he was a family friend, and he wrote the teleplay for Lonesome Dove, and pretty well saved the movie because he was also a co-producer with Creative Control, and the only reason there's any cattle drive footage left in that miniseries is because Whitliff made him recut it because
right.
For TV executives, they want full face time with principal actors.
Right.
So the first cut was all Angelica all the time, and when Bill said, "No, this is kind of a western,"
yeah, you're right.
Guys on horseback.
Yeah. And speaking of western, so I mean, the title of the album is "The Horses and the Hounds." So obviously, some kind of metaphor going on there. Why have you chosen that as kind of the marquee for the record?
You might hear some gears a grinding before I can get this rig turned back around and head back down the highway winding back towards the horses and the hounds.
I don't know. I wrote the song, and it's kind of about facing your demons. I'm nearly 60, so it's time for me to face the horses and see if I can get back through them.
Right. So, I mean, obviously, you've mentioned it a couple times. Aging is something you're thinking about. What's going through your head? Are you looking forward 10 years, or are you looking backward more?
I'm not looking either direction, really. I'm trying to look. I'm trying to be present.
Right.
And as much as I can. I don't know that you can ever be totally present.
Right.
But it helps to keep your eyes open anyway.
Well, especially with the COVID stuff and the politics and all of the things that are kind of whirling around at this point. It seems different. Does it feel different to you?
It is. It's like you have to get a little ahead of the curve. And my strategy is to see what happens in Italy.
Okay.
Watch what happens in Italy and the UK, because we're next always, and the way this thing has unfolded, I didn't take COVID seriously until I read an article about what was happening in northern Italy at the time, where they had these lockdowns, and I knew people in northern Italy, and so I was contacting them by email and like, yeah, this is real, all right.
Right.
And that's when I canceled I started canceling gigs and just stocking up the deep freeze and hunkering down.
Yeah,
I still do it, and but we didn't take this Delta very seriously until I was about to go back and restart my weekly residencies at the Continental Club in Austin.
Right.
And I held off for an extra month just to be sure, and by the end of that month, musicians were getting breakthrough cases. Fully vaccinated people, and largely musicians. It seemed like the singers and the drummers got it first.
Right.
Which makes sense because they're breathing down to their toenails. If there's any viral load in the air, they're going to catch some of it. And so I just I said, I'm not going back till October at the earliest now, and I don't even know about that.
Yeah, well, we thought we had kind of kicked it here in New Zealand, and then
you did a good job.
Now we're locked down again. So.
Yeah, but you will lock down. That's the thing. We won't do it anymore.
And
where we are, Texas is off the scale.
Yeah.
Our hospitals are jammed, and I don't dare have a heart attack or a car wreck, because I'm not going to get a hospital room. Not going to get a bed, guarantee you. I'll be sitting in the hall somewhere. And my manager's uncle has to get chemo, and he has to sit out in the hall to get his chemo.
Man.
Because he lives out there in West Texas, and there's not many hospital beds, and it's insane. And schools are about to open.
Right.
So you have a virus that relatively easily breaks through the vaccine, vaccinated people don't seem to get very sick, but they can take it home to their kids who can't be vaccinated yet, and they're getting real sick.
Yeah.
Houston has something like 50 children in ICU. And that's the stuff they used to say, oh, it's okay, the kids won't get it. No, the kids are getting it, and they're getting sick. And and these people, you know, Abbott, the Republicans are just off the scale. They can't break character, even if it kills their grandchildren. And Greg Abbott, he's worried about his political future. He has to be the meanest Republican in the room, or somebody's going to outflank him on the right. If he does anything sensible, he will be called a rhino, Republican in name only, and they'll primary him out. And he knows it, so he's fighting mask mandates tooth and nail, even though it works.
Right.
You know, he's fighting it on the basis that we can't mandate anything because we're the United States. Well, you know, we didn't used to do that. You know, we used to have a little bit of sense about public health.
Yep.
Sometimes.
I
mean, I only know one person my age who walks with a leg brace from having polio as a child.
Yeah.
In my mother's generation, there's a lot of them.
Absolutely. Yep.
Because they didn't have a vaccine. We vaxxed up. I mean, we didn't question that.
Nope, nobody did. Nope.
Yeah.
All that stuff seemed to just go, yep. And now people are worried about being brainwashed or being, it's a totalitarian state that's telling them what to do with their bodies.
Some of them don't trust the vaccine because it came so fast, but you know, this is not 1950s America. It doesn't take 10 years to get a vaccine.
Yep.
The human genome has been mapped, and we have computer technology that moves things along pretty well, and we have 40 years of chasing an HIV vaccine that they never got, but they did learn a lot about virology in that 40 years. You know, it's just a different world.
But like you say, I mean, no matter what you say or what kind of facts and stats that you show to somebody, it seems like these days nothing will change some people's minds because
it's tribal. It's tribalism, and if they show any sense, then they're not in their tribe. That they, you know, everybody's freaked out, so they look for safety in numbers. Everybody, a Harley Davidson dealer once told me there's this Harley shop up in Tennessee that used to be a Lowe's. And the lumber shed they made into a outdoor stage, so they can have outdoor concerts in a pouring down rainstorm. You know?
Right.
But the guy that owns the place, he let us in the showroom one time, and he let us pick out jackets, and we get a jacket for a party favor. And he said he made more money off the clothes than he did off the bikes.
Right.
I said, that's weird. And he said, no, man. He says, people don't buy Harleys because they want a bike. They buy Harleys because they want to be part of something, and that's what I sell.
Right.
And I have an uncle who very soon after bought a Harley Davidson and joined Harley Riders of America.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, had to be
I'm part of a club. Yes. Now getting back to the record, one of the songs I kind of was hoping to talk about was Fort Walton Wake Up Call.
Can't get online to check the bank. Twitter's on fire, my stock's all tanked. But what's really getting to me is I keep losing my glasses. I keep losing my glasses. I keep losing my glasses. I keep losing my glasses.
Yeah.
Because to me, the record seems to kind of build up to something. Maybe you can tell me what it's getting to, or what you're doing sonically with it.
Well, in that song, I mean, pretty much every year, except last year, there's a festival in the Florida Panhandle called the 30A Festival, and it's named after the road that runs through it. Because they have multiple venues all along Highway 30A.
Right.
I think that's Florida State Highway 30 alternate.
Right.
And it goes through Fort Walton Beach, Destin, places like that. And the festival takes place in January. Now, when the wind blows from the north, the Florida Panhandle gets nearly as cold as the Texas Panhandle. Only it's worse because you're on the Gulf Coast. You got that damp air, cuts right through you. And it seemed like every year I'd have to be on an outdoor stage at 30 degrees. And it was so cold, my 12-string guitar wouldn't go out of tune because my body couldn't heat it. You know,
right.
It stayed at constant temperature once you got it. Yeah, but I started playing with words in some hotel room somewhere, and I don't know where I came up with that first verse, but I just kind of followed it. And the losing my glasses refrain was really just a placeholder that I stuck in there, hoping that I would come up with a real chorus at some point.
Right.
And I never did, because I played it for these guys at sound check, and it was Darren, the drummer, said, during the session, because I didn't think the song, I didn't intend to record that song for the record. I didn't really think it was a song.
Right.
But I'd just done it at sound check a couple times just to goof off. And Darren heard it, and we go into the session, and he said, why isn't glasses in there? Get that thing out. So I did, and I wrote it in, and Ross said, yeah, we got to do that. And
definitely.
I finished that, along with several other songs. I finished that song in a roadway inn in Culver City, which is where we were staying for the tracking. And the guy that owns the pizza place next door to there said, yeah, the locals call it the Roadkill Inn because there was a hostage incident, and Los Angeles SWAT team shot a guy through the upstairs window. I was in a downstairs room, so it wasn't haunted or anything.
Right.
Yeah, that's. Sometimes I write best in those really drab little hotel rooms where there's nothing else to do.
Right, right. And do you wear glasses?
I wear glasses. I don't have to wear them now. They would create terrible glare from the light.
Well,
here.
I can't see a thing without mine.
I can show you here. That's
there you go.
Like
you're right. It does have a glare.
I found my glasses. So.
I will say, I think I'm a bit older than you. My eyesight has been getting better as I've been getting older.
Mine's pretty well stabilized, it seems like, because that prescription, I lost my regular glasses at the beginning of lockdown, and I found 2 prescriptions that are like over 10 years old, and they seem to work. I can read road signs.
Yep, that's all you need. There you go.
I can't see up close with them. I have to look over my glasses, but
right.
I got some reading glasses. Yeah, let's see, if I really want to read the top of the computer, I got these here.
So the record came out, was it last Friday, right?
Yeah, it was the 20th, the same day Tom T. Hall died.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Did you know him?
No. I wish I had.
Yeah.
But I didn't. No.
Yeah, yep. Tom T. Hall. And what did you do on the day? Anything?
The 20th, we played an actual full band gig opening for Reckless Kelly at Floor's Country Store in Helotes, which is west of San Antonio on the Bandera Highway.
Sounds like a good gig.
It was all right. I mean, because it's kind of low key for us, which is good because we had only had like 5 rehearsals in the last year.
So, do you get rusty? Do you need to keep doing that?
Oh yeah, we do get rusty and we get nervous, and like that. It's strange because we rehearsed a few of the new songs and they came kind of easy because we still had the charts from the session. We could figure that out, but the songs that we've been playing for decades were harder because there were all these weird little doodads that we'd put in the instrumental section that we could not remember. We played them every night for so long that after a year and a half, it's turned into this amorphous, dreadful, great kind of jam. I don't know, but like you play those songs a few times, and it starts to come back.
Right.
Your muscles remember. Oh, this is where this goes.
Yep. Sometimes you kind of have to let yourself go blank.
Yeah, it takes a while though.
Very good. And are you thinking about the next record, or is it going to be another 7 years in between?
No, I'm not making more records, man. Are you kidding me? No, yeah. I don't know. I mean, the thing is, it's 7 years between releases.
Right.
It's not 7 years between productions. And the thing about a release is there's no such thing as a release date until after it happens.
Right.
We figured this record would come out in late 2019, early 2020,
right.
Kind of thing. Things happen. My second record was made and ready to go in 1990. It came out in 1992. It got shelved. Like the management company I was working with broke up, and record got shelved, and somehow my new manager talked it off the shelf, which is really hard to do. Back then I was on a major label. I was on Columbia.
Yep.
And they didn't need a James McMurtry record. They were doing fine with Bruce Springsteen and everybody else, so that record just could have taken root on the shelf like they usually do. So I got real lucky. So far, everything I've made has come out.
Well, that's a plus. I mean, and how do you view the record business these days, or the music business? Is it better, worse, or just kind of different?
It's the same for me. I'm in a van. I was in a van to start with.
Right.
I didn't sell enough records early on to recoup. So the upshot was I wound up learning how to tour cheap and actually profit on touring.
Right.
My accountant 30 years ago said, "Oh, touring's not profitable. You do that to sell records." Well, I didn't sell any records, so touring had to be profitable after that.
Yep. Yeah, for a lot of people, I imagine this has been quite a shakeup with not being able to play. Have you talked to other performers? Do you commiserate?
No, I don't commiserate because I wasn't miserable.
That's good.
I don't miss the road, really. After about 2 weeks of being home, I thought, "Now, what's that weird? Oh, that's my back not hurting."
Right.
I'm not hunched over steering wheel 6 hours a day and carrying amps back and forth after that.
Yeah.
We do it pretty stripped down. We are the band and the crew, and the transportation coordinator, and all that stuff. And I learned how to live stream, and people seem to need it. They're locked down too.
Right.
And I'm still doing those live streams because I haven't done very many live gigs. I just do outdoor gigs, and now at my indoor gigs, on the rare occasions I have them, I demand a vaccination card and masks.
Yeah.
That means I can't hardly play in Texas.
Florida's probably right out as well.
I can't go. Well, I don't do good in Florida anyway, but I can't go to Tennessee. I can't go to Georgia. I can't go to South Carolina.
Yeah.
That will change. ISBL has really taken a stand.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of people have, and that's going to become industry standard. Well, ISBL pulled off a nice coup in Fort Worth because he had a show there and he demanded mask and vax, and so they canceled him. Well, Billy Bob's picked him up, and Billy Bob's, you get better press out of Billy Bob's, I think.
Yeah.
I've heard of that place. I haven't heard of the place that canceled him.
Right.
Couldn't tell you where it was, but I know Billy Bob's. And so the Billy Bob's owner first got threatened by the TABC to pull his liquor license.
Oh, really?
Because Abbott is going after people's liquor license. If private businesses, like here, we seem to think it's government overreach if the federal government tells the state of Texas what to do. But if the state of Texas tells a city or a private business they can't do a mask mandate, that's not government overreach somehow. That's patriotism. I don't know. You explain to me how that works. I don't know, but Billy Bob's picked up the show.
Okay.
And they weren't afraid of the TABC. They said, "No, we'll just tie you up in court forever because it's one artist demanding this for one show at this point." And the guy said in the paper, said, "I really don't care. If this is what the artist wants to do, besides," he says, "next week I got Kid Rock." He doesn't care.
Right.
But Billy Bob's, I forget the owner's name, but he predicted, he said, "No, this is how the industry's going to go. If we're going to have concerts at all, it's going to be vax and mask."
Right.
And that's just how it's going to go. And that's the way I see it. I'm not near as big as ISBL. I'm playing 250 seat clubs that do fear for their liquor license. So
yeah.
I'm not going to have a lot of gigs in red states.
Right.
I do have a couple in Arizona, and actually I did the same thing in Phoenix on a much smaller scale. The Crescent Theater picked me up over a show that got canceled at another venue for the same reason. And of course, it's interesting because now that venue that I had to cancel at has instituted their policy that it's now mask and vax, even though it's Arizona, which is purely Trump land. But at least the Arizona governor doesn't say you're going to lose your liquor license if you.
Yeah. Man, I mean, being a musician and being in the music business is this stuff is. I can't imagine talking about this stuff 20, 30 years ago, but now it's something that you have to deal with.
Well, I mean, the music business. The touring business is symbiotically tied to the bar business.
Sure. Yeah.
So basically, we're service industry, whether we like it or not. I've heard young kids standing out behind bars going, "We're not beer salesmen." I'm like, "Yeah, you are if you want a gig."
Yeah, right.
If the bar goes down, you don't have a gig.
That's where all the money's to be made. Yep.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're selling tickets, they're selling liquor, and everybody in that bar has to go home happy.
Yep.
Every waitress, every bartender has to get good tips. It has to be full, otherwise you don't get that gig next time you're touring.
That's a fact.
Something else.
Yeah. And I'm curious. I'm just kind of asking everybody this: how have you changed over the past year because of all the stuff that's happening? Are you kind of a different person than you were, say, 6? 90.
Definitely. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I don't need to be a road dog. I don't need that as an identity.
Right.
I can do that as a vocation if I get the chance again. But I don't feel like I need an identity of any sort, really.
All right. No identity.
Yeah. Yeah, whatever. My identity is that's somebody else's thing,
Yep.
Anybody listening to me can identify me as something, but I don't really need it for myself.
Very good. Well, thank you for talking to me about all this. It's fascinating, and thanks for making the record. I'm glad you got around to it. I'm glad you had to. Have you been to New Zealand?
I have not. I'd like to come down there and hunt some deer and catch some trout, maybe.
The trout are humongous here.
That's what I hear.
When I first came here, went out on Lake Taupo, I mean, I'm American, as you can tell by my accent. And, you catch a 12-inch or 16-inch trout, you're happy. Here, they're like 5 feet. I was like, whoa, jumping up in the air. It was amazing.
Kilos, I don't know. Yeah. Well, I hear there's real good deer hunting on some of those islands.
Yep. So
I like the venison.
Got plenty of it. Well, thank you very much. Good luck with everything. And maybe we'll see you down here sometime.
Thank you. I hope to get there.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye now.